the man who went down in history as one of the most brutal serial killers in America. From 1972 to 1978, he lured teenagers and young men to his home. He promised them work, money, or just friendly company. But instead, he turned their lives into a nightmare. A man who, at first glance, seems like a model citizen. He throws parties for neighbors, works in the construction business, dresses up as a clown to entertain children at parties. The smile on his face is bright, colorful, like a circus character. But behind this smile, there is a monster. In his basement and in the walls of his house, the police found the bodies of more than 30 people. Some of the victims were buried right under the place where Gacy dined with his family and received guests. The rest he threw into the river, like unnecessary garbage. They nicknamed him the Killer Clown, and this nickname became a symbol of horror. After all, the clown who was supposed to bring joy to children turned out to be the face of absolute evil. And today we will figure out who was John Wayne Gacy. How did an ordinary guy from Chicago become a monster whose crimes still frighten the whole world? John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, to a Catholic family of Polish and Danish descent in Chicago, Illinois. At first glance, his childhood was no different from the lives of thousands of other American boys of that time. But behind the facade of a cozy home and smiles and photographs, there was a harsh and painful reality that largely shaped the future killer. His father, John Gacy Sr., was a veteran of World War I, a tough, stern, and hot-tempered man. He suffered from alcoholism and often took out his aggression on his family, especially on little John. His father called him weak, effeminate, a mama's boy. Any manifestation of softness or sensitivity was perceived by him as a sign of weakness. Gacy did not feel confident at school either. He suffered from a congenital heart defect and chronic health problems. Unlike other boys, he could not play sports, often missed classes, and was left out of school games. His peers saw him as strange and often teased him. All this caused him to feel rejected and inferior. By the end of the 1950s, John was already aware of his otherness. He began to understand early on that he was drawn to men, but at that time such thoughts were considered shameful. He carefully hid this from everyone, which only intensified his internal conflict. The first serious turning point in Gacy's life was his move to Las Vegas. There he got a job at a funeral home. The young man had to deal with the bodies of the dead, prepare them for burial. This work left a deep mark on his mind. According to acquaintances, at that time he could sit for a long time at night next to the coffins, examining the bodies, as if finding strange peace in this. But soon he quit his job and returned to Chicago. Soon he married Marilyn Myers, the daughter of a wealthy owner of a Kentucky Fried Chicken chain in Iowa. The marriage opened up new opportunities for him. His father-in-law gave him a job as a manager of several KFC restaurants. At first glance, it seemed that Gacy's life was finally getting better. A wife, a stable job, respect in society. Even then, Gacy began to show his true inclinations. There were rumors among his friends and colleagues that he was pestering young employees and organizing dubious games with teenagers, promising them money or drinks. Outwardly, he remained an exemplary husband and hardworking employee, but his secret life was gradually gaining momentum. By the mid-1960s, he was drawn not only to work and family, but also to social activities. Gacy actively joined the life of the town. He participated in clubs, organizations, became famous and respected. People saw him as an energetic, sociable person, ready to help. No one could have guessed that cruelty and perverted fantasies were hidden behind this mask. It was during this period that his first crimes began, which became the harbingers of future horror. John Wayne Gacy's house in the quiet Chicago suburb of Norwood Park looked unremarkable. an ordinary two-story cottage with a well-kept yard. Neighbors were accustomed to noisy parties, laughter and fun that often came from its walls. But behind this facade hid one of the most terrible secrets of America. After his first murder in 1972, Gacy felt what he later described as a taste of power. His ordinary life business, politics, the image of a clown, continued to develop, but at night he increasingly turned into a hunter. He used his construction business as a trap. He offered teenagers and young men part-time jobs painting houses, carrying building materials, running simple errands. For many, this was an opportunity to earn a few dollars, and few refused. Particularly vulnerable were those who had run away from home or did not have family support. Gacy found such people easily. In addition to work, he often invited young guys just to have a drink or to play games. His charisma and ability to impress inspired confidence. He seemed like a cheerful, friendly person, and teenagers rarely saw him as a threat. But one day, behind the closed door of a house on Norwood Park, his perverted game began. Gacy often introduced himself as a magician. He showed a handcuff trick. The idea was that he offered to put on handcuffs for fun, and when the victim agreed, he showed that he had the key in his pocket. But when the guy was tied up, everything turned into a nightmare. Sometimes he used a rope trick. He made a noose, passed it around the victim's neck, and began to joke that it was just a game. But the noose tightened more and more until the teenager suffocated. Gacy enjoyed it. In his subsequent confessions, he said that the deaths of his victims gave him a feeling of absolute control. His victims were teenagers between the ages of 14 and 21. Almost all of them were boys, whom he lured with promises of work, money, or entertainment. Many disappeared without a trace, and their families began a desperate search. But the police did not always take the reports seriously. In the 1970s, teenagers running away from home were considered a common occurrence. When a family reported a missing person, the police often responded, "He probably just ran away." Therefore, many cases were not properly investigated. And Gacy took advantage of this. The house gradually turned into a crypt. The basement and the space under the floor became his main cemetery. He carefully dug holes and put the bodies in them. In total, 29 victims were buried there. When there was not enough space, he began dumping the bodies in the Des Plaines River. Neighbors sometimes complained about a strange smell coming from under the house. Gacy explained it by problems with the sewer or humidity in the basement. And strangely enough, people believed it. No one even thought that a person who committed such horrors lived next to them. In society, he continued to wear a mask. He was an active member of the Democratic Party, organized meetings, organized charity events. He appeared in a clown costume at children's parties, gave joy, smiles. And this was the most terrible irony. A man who killed children and teenagers entertained others, portraying a symbol of happiness. The police crossed paths with Gacy several times. For example, in 1975, he became a suspect in the disappearance of a teenager, but there was not enough evidence. His ability to talk to people, confidence, and charisma allowed him to evade responsibility. He created the image of a respectable citizen, and many police officers did not believe that he could be involved in the disappearances. At that time, Gacy had already completely lost control of his instincts. Victims appeared more and more often. Sometimes he could kill 2 in one night. He himself admitted later, "I could no longer stop. It was like an addiction." By the mid-1970s, the list of missing teenagers in the Chicago area was growing, but no one connected their disappearances with one person. Gacy remained in the shadows, continuing his double life. By 1978, he had committed more than 30 murders. His house was overflowing with bodies, and the secret was becoming increasingly difficult to hide. Soon, he would make a fatal mistake that would lead to exposure. But before that moment, he lived for several more years in a world where by day he was a smiling clown and a trusted neighbor, and by night, a ruthless predator hunting for the lives of teenagers. Everything changed in December 1978. 15-year-old Robert Piest, who worked part-time at a nearby drugstore, disappeared one evening after his shift. He was last seen getting into Gacy's car. For the police, this was the lead they had been missing. When investigators came to Gacy's home to search, they found strange evidence. Handcuffs, driver's licenses belonging to the missing teenagers, and a suspicious smell coming from the basement. A second search revealed the horrifying truth. Dozens of bodies were buried under the floors of the house. The final death toll shocked the world: 33 teenagers and young men. 29 bodies were found right in his home, the rest in the Des Plaines River. At his trial in 1980, Gacy tried to play innocent, claiming that he had a personality disorder and that someone else had committed some of the murders. But the evidence was overwhelming. He was found guilty on all counts. Sentence: death penalty. Gacy spent 14 years on death row. He painted pictures, often of clowns, which were then sold at auction. Many considered it sacrilege. The man who turned the image of a clown into a symbol of horror was now making money off of it even in prison. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed in the electric chair. His last words were cold and defiant. "Kiss my ass." The story of the killer clown became a symbol of how deceptive human masks can be. The clown's smile, which was supposed to bring joy, turned into the face of horror.